Kia ora mai tātou, tuatahi ake e tautoko ana hau ngā mihi kua tau ki runga i a matua Dennis, o tira kia koe hoki tawhiti, te kaupakahaere o tēnei rangi, o tira kia koutou kua hui hui mai nei i tēnei rangi, nei au e mihi ana. Te ara whānau ora, what a hard act to follow with Bruce there, but he laid a great foundation for some key messages that are, I guess, important for us as a wider support social service group to the families that we support. Is it meaningful engagement? Is it positive engagement? Are we getting outcomes for these whānau that we have the responsibility of to take care of, to assist, to support through their journey? So what I'm going to talk to today is a bit of a on the ground perspective. I'm nice and short, close to the ground, so it's to provide some perspective. So kia toitu te kupu te mana te ora, whānau living happier, healthier, more culturally rewarding lives. Now, it's quite a broad statement, but and for each and every one of us, happier, healthier and culturally rewarding will be a bit different. And that's the importance about this. And today I'm here to talk about navigation and local approaches. Now, for a reason, I've chosen black and white. There are a few pictures in that throughout my presentation and little bits of colour, but it's in black and white because I want to be quite clear about what's being shown here, and whether you take it on board or not, well, to see how it fits for you, your workplace, and the support that you provide. Here's a little snapshot into my whānau ora. Have my koro there on the left-hand side. My son, my older son on the right-hand side, and in the middle, my maunga from my mum's deck. That house that my grandfather's sitting in front of is yonder there, where you can see those buildings, and that's one of our kapahaku group up home. So for me, whānau ora, the one word I would choose would be succession. So without a solid foundation in terms of our past, what does our future look like, and the present also? So, food for thought, whānau, because very next question is, what constitutes whānau ora or family well-being to yourselves? Think of a one-worder just off the top of your head, and if I had the luxury of asking you, I dare say that everybody's words will be vastly different. Ka pai, and I want us to actually, that's why it's in black and white, because I want us to understand that and recognise that. Ka pai, my word will be different to yours, your word will be different to your neighbours. And what aspects of your version of whānau ora are you accountable to? As the father, as the mother, as the auntie, as the nanny, as the koro, the grandparents. What aspects of that well-being are you accountable to? Quite often you'll find I'm accountable. I have to get up, go to work, provide the resource for my whānau. I have to ensure my kids get to school. I have to fill up my pantry so I can make my cake. I have to do all those things. What part of your accountability to your version of well-being does it say that you need to be accountable to somebody else's opinion of what your well-being should look like? Did anybody within their quick little thought process that they bounced around in their head, did they say, well, actually, I'm accountable to what I think my neighbour thinks that I should be doing, or somebody else that's out? Obviously, we're accountable to our children, our partners and things like that. That's a given. I'm looking for people outside of that nucleus. So when we're actually providing support out in the community, we don't sit within that group. We're outsiders. And we have to be very, very mindful that when families or whānau are constantly living in crisis mode, or they have historically always have, what do you think that well-being looks like for them? And Bruce touched on that in his presentation. He threw up some goals, said, homeowner, good education, all those kinds of things. And then he also gave the reality. And that's the reality that us as service providers need to understand. Is what is the reality? Is it milk in the fridge? Is it no more violence in my home? And those look vastly different to what we consider to be whānau ora. For us in Tokomaru Bay, it's caviar on a Sunday. But whatever it is for you fellas, that's what it is. But it's being mindful of that when we're out there supporting people. That's where the rubber hits the road. This is what makes the difference. Which leads me to the next point is, I'm not saying coming from a deficit model, but when we are providing a service, if it's prescriptive and based on my opinion, my service's opinion, society's opinion of what well-being should be, do you think that's a viable solution when we're talking about ownership and accountability? Because, as I mentioned before, when we go in to help families and support families, when we wear a hat of knowledge base, importance in some cases, in Te Ao Māori we call them whakaputa mōhio, more affectionately known as know-it-alls. And Bruce touched on it. In terms of our whānau, nobody knows them better than themselves. But we overlook that quite often. And we underestimate the power of taking time to sit down and getting to know people so that we know what wellness looks like for them. Because if we don't, then who are they accountable to? Is it themselves? Or is it other people's expectations of what help, what change looks like? So the best place to start is actually with the whānau. And again, how do we translate what somebody else considers to be well-being into a dream that they can aspire to? Because I would stand over here and think, oh, maybe not. Maybe you should be. But that's not my role. My role is to discuss that with a family, to sit down, talk with them. After the relationship that I've formed, is to sit down to talk with them to see where they're at. Where they're at. Because help is set up in a way where families have to come up here to meet us. Straight away, it's expectation. We need, you should, you must, you have to. That's right through all of our systems. So when we're talking about social change, social movement, a change in thinking, as Tāmeihana said, are we really making a difference, a positive difference? And to actually ask yourself the hard question within your own workplace, within your own service, am I? And just to touch on what Bruce mentioned again was that it's important that whānau sit at the centre. Sit at the centre of any mahi that we do with them. Because when we don't create self-accountability within families, they become accountable to other people, we don't increase engagement, we don't increase buy-in, are we setting them up to fail? But when we compare outcomes to outputs and things like that, it doesn't really matter because we've got our outputs. Okay? I'm justifying my existence as a contract holder to provide this service. And I'm not singling out any particular service, I'm just saying, as socially, that's what we've come to expect. And I'm here to attempt, I'll never ever say that I'll do it justice, but attempt to give this group here a view of what a whānau that we support, what they see through their eyes when they're walking through different doors in the community. And this is the reality of it. So I start asking, is my service approachable? Have I taken the time to actually get to know a little bit about this person so that I can understand where they're coming from? Because how can I best support them if I don't know that stuff? I can make assumptions, I have a body of knowledge, I'm important. People will often ask me, what's your background? I say, manners, respect, things like that. No, did you mean my educational background? Sorry. And because traditionally I don't dress like this, I'm out in the community, so I dress for the community so that I can blend. that I can blend and that people can relate to me. Some days when I do have to dress up, I go out on my phone and I say, oh, where you been today? You know, what are you up to? Because I don't, that's not me. Because I make myself accessible to my family. I don't make them come to me. And that's a big part of it. We underestimate. It's a simple concept, but we don't get it. Because this is a one-size-fits-all society, isn't it? For increasingly changing demographic. It's such a diverse country. But we don't cater to that demographic. I've got a Spanish refugee whānau that I'm supporting, absolutely no English. I've been into work and income and they say, oh, they're not answering, they're not doing what they should be doing. I said, how can they? They're males in English. How are they supposed to know? Is there anything that the ministry can do to help this family so they can be affluent within your system? Oh, we'll look into it. And if we're actually going to talk about the reality of what help is and how we're helping, those things matter. They actually do matter. But do we pay it the attention that it deserves? Do we acknowledge it? I'm not sure we do. But hey, that's only my opinion, as I said. Within your own workplaces and services, you'll know full well what you do. And this is only food for thought to see how this applies to what you are currently doing. But how do we translate what other people consider to be whānau ora for themselves into something that they can aspire to, that's real, that's achievable, that I can do, that means something to me? Go and do a parenting program, you have to. So you can tick that box. Ka pai? Did you actually get anything out of that parenting program? How many whānau have we sent through parenting programs? And it's like, oh, ka pai, anei tō tohu, here's your certificate, ka pai. Too much, I get to tick my box, output. Me. Did anybody actually bother to go and catch up with that whānau afterwards and say, did you get anything out of it? Have you changed? Are you a better parent? Does anybody do that? And that stuff's important. Because otherwise we're just outputting, as was put by Bruce before. And again, the key theme. Us as service providers, we are not the whakaputa mōhio. We are not the know-alls. We do not know it all. Until we get that into our own thinking processes, we're never ever going to be able to truly reach the families that we are there to support. Whānau ora is determined by your own dreams, aspirations, not somebody else's. Now, it doesn't matter what culture, these concepts don't just lie with te ao Māori. These are, I guess in the Western world we have things like 10 Commandments. These themes aren't brand new. They've been around for thousands of years. But our society's developed in a way where I have a body of knowledge. I'm going to exercise that body of knowledge. And because of my body of knowledge, maybe the things that you have to offer, I won't have as much benefit as what I have to say about your situation. And again, I stress, we don't give enough importance to what it means to treat a person like a person, to understand them, to actually hear them, and to listen to them. It's quite interesting. Quite often I ask people in a social service space, if you were to have a circle, and this is your circle of communication, how much would you devote to listening? How much would you devote to talking? Interestingly enough, it's roughly a 50-50 spread. Oh yeah, bit of listening, bit of talking. We underestimate body language too. Not many people say, oh, my body language has an impact on that circle of communication. If anything, we need to be flipping that right around and saying a quarter, if that, of my circle is about this and what I have to say. Because how can I truly, like I say, understand, get to know, think about supports and a plan that's tailored to a family without listening? If I'm going around there like this, when do they get to talk? When do I get to listen? As well as my body language too. If it's all sort of a, oh, I think you should, and that kind of stuff. It all contributes, but we underestimate that. You cannot go to university and get a degree in how to communicate well with people. You can go and do communications degrees, you can do all that stuff under the sun, but if you don't have the ability to actually sit down, engage a person, make them feel comfortable, not yourself, make them feel comfortable about why you're there and what you're doing, what's the use? It's interesting. So I'm very, very curious about, as a country, as a society, how we direct help and what our view of help is. So that's a brief insight into the concept from a ground perspective as a navigator. From a lot of the times I sit with families and they share their experiences. A lot of our society isn't attainable for our families. That's how they feel. I'm over here, I cannot see myself being affluent over there. I need to complete this, this and this and this. But I want change, but I don't want to do it in that way. The next thing I want to talk to is the approach. And again, as it's been mentioned, navigational services are a service. But the whānau ora approach is a concept. And again, it's not culturally, it's not demographic specific. Why this model came about was to address the disparity in our country between Māori and non-Māori. That's true. There's no denial there because it is an issue. It is a problem. And it didn't just happen. Ka pai? Underpinned by Māori worldview, tikanga, important. So we have a pōhiri process as Māori. Okay, before we go to a marae, we have to gather out the front so that the haukai can sit there and go, well, who's that? What are they here for? In contemporary times, we have the luxury of things like social media, phones, all sorts. So people know why we're coming in contemporary times. However, back in the day, someone rolled up to your waharoa at your marae. You didn't know who they were quite often, why they were there, unless there was a kaupapa happening at your marae. Are they friend? Are they foe? So when we turn up to people's houses, demand to come in. You must let me in. I need to talk to you about your problems. There's a big difference. I'm very, very clear, black and white, if you like, about what underpins this concept. Māori worldview, tikanga being one of those things. We have a tikanga. We go there, we ask, may we come on? Or we don't ask actually, we stand there, and if they want us to come, they will call out and say, haramai, ka pai? They will invite us. Once invited, we still have to tread very carefully. Don't just rush in and park myself down. Because I have to actually let this family know, or they have to know, why I'm here, what I'm about, what my purpose is. But first, traditionally, the people of that marae will get up first and talk to me. And a big part of that whai kōrero process is my ability to sit there and listen. Because I have to get up and talk back to these people. I have to respond. Will I respond with my own agenda, or will I actually make this a meaningful engagement and answer the questions that they've asked of me? So I'm very, very big on that. And that's the thing I like about this model. Not because it's tikanga Māori, not because it's Māori, but it's respectful. And that's a big difference. Because it puts the whānau at the centre again. Again, it explores the whole person. Bruce mentioned before about te whare tapawhā. We have a look at our pantry. We have a look at a genogram. We actually look at a person based on where they've come from. Because that gives us a much better indication about where they're from, what skills they may or may not have. The thing that interests me about this is that in terms of our services, or not just social services, but society will lean on research when it supports your argument. So if it supports me, I'm going to bring it up all the time, And I'm not going to talk about that other stuff that doesn't support my opinion. An example I'll use is brainwave. Many of us in here familiar with the brainwave research? So they talk about the first 1,000 days being so important. And we drive that home, And we use that basis, the first 1,000 days, to say, actually, you're not fulfilling your obligation as a parent. You're not fulfilling your obligation as a carer, as a role model, because the first 1,000 days is so important, and brainwave tells us that. This baby is forming these connections, and we're hardwiring this child for a life of whatever it's experiencing. So you need help because we can't let that happen. However, when we start talking about a space of, I've got a person whose first 1,000 days wasn't that great, okay? They experienced some exposure to some of our less fortunate things like family violence, drinking as a norm, left to fend for themselves, things like that. But by the time they get to adulthood, and that cycle continues with their own children, we will lean on the research to say, you cannot have your children, I must take them away. But we never ever lean on the research to say, well, actually, you had a really, really bad first 1,000 days. What's your actual capacity? How hardwired is your brain to actually do what's being asked of you? It's not as simple as somebody being able to make a choice where my first 1,000 days was in the shed, where my first 1,000 days was watching my mother or my parents doing that to me. Do I know any different? So why do I try and treat people like they should? If I lean on the research over here, that same research would tell me over here, I need to do something differently with this group of parents to actually make a change. But do I? No, I don't. That's the reality of it. That's the black and white. I don't. I'll lean on the research over here because it allows me to fulfill that obligation. But over here, when it comes to the rubber hitting the road and actually giving you the tools, the resource, the ability to be a better parent, based on this research over here, I should be doing that. Shouldn't be setting you up to fail. And this is a reality from a whānau view, from a navigator's view, sitting next to my family, supporting them in these environments. I will be clear, I'm not here to excuse anybody's behaviour or make excuses for it. I'm here to make families accountable. But let's make them accountable in a way that they can achieve. Again, the whakawhanaungatanga thing. Everyone thinks it's cuz, choo, cup of coffee, too much, bring us some milk. Don't underestimate it. Do not underestimate it, because it can change your relationship and the way that you can interact with the whānau and make some meaningful change, because they trust you. They trust you. They know that you have their best interest in mind. I'm not here to get an output. I'm not here to tick a box. And the big thing about it again, about this relationship building and whakawhanaungatanga, it's not the cuz, because that's what we're good at. It's about improving our ability to see what a need-specific intervention for this family may look like. And to be able to talk about those things with that whānau. To take that time, to create that trust, to get that disclosure that you wouldn't have had I have walked in and stood in the doorway like this and said, I'm here to help you because such and such said you need help or you've got this wrong going in your life. Again, are we there to make a difference? Or are we there? Now, I'm aware Bruce covered the 4 stages of the Te Ara Whānau Ora model, but throughout this, so I'm going to quickly rush over that, and just a quick recap for you fellas. Ngā moe moe a, te whare tapa whā, the use of genogram whakapapa, and lastly, te ara o ngā ara. So we've had the kōrero. I'm going to skip through. Skip through these, and I'm going to talk to this piece here, our genogram. So, traditionally in Te Ao Māori, we use the word whakapapa. Ka pai? However, within a situation like this, because he mea tapu te whakapapa, ne? So whakapapa is something that does not move, it does not shift. It is very sacred to us as te ao Māori, because without whakapapa, who are we? Where are we from? For all intents and purposes, for the use in this model, because our families are so diverse, hence the kupu genogram. Ka pai? Now, I encourage whānau to include whoever they want on this. It could be the cat, it could be anybody. But it's how we use it. So I go in there and I've got an assessment that I need to complete on this whānau, and it's got all these domains regarding upbringing and experience and all these domains that I need to tick off, and I need to rate you. I need to rate you in your ability to, how well you're going in these various areas. It's, for those of us that use assessment tools like that, they're very, very impersonal. And quite often we feel a little bit embarrassed by sitting there with our clipboard. Going, oh, is it okay if I take a few notes while we talk? Ka pai? And we sit there, cross it, those ones. And we sit and we talk with these whānau, and we ask them all these questions, and a lot of those things are quite invasive, aren't they? They're hard to talk to. Ka pai? A process like a genogram is a wonderful way to actually sit down, to listen to a person, to get to know them, to get to understand them, and get a picture of who they are without sitting there with your notebook and ticking your boxes and trying to rate how successful they are in each of these domains. Ka pai? So for example, over here we've got a rough genogram. I don't have 5 children, 2 and 1 on the way. But for all intents and purposes, we will say that in the second line there, in terms of parents, I'm that black circle. Ka pai? And I'm being visited by a whānau or a navigator. And the navigator sits down and he says to me, oh, kia ora, Jean, can you please tell me about the people on your family tree? Tell me about your dad. Give me some one-worders. Tell me about your dad. And I'll think, oh, geez. And for the record, this is truthful. You're a bit of a hard man, my dad. Not tall, you're like me, very short, but he's angry. Angry little man. He loved drinking. Loved drinking, don't get me wrong, we were well fed. Always had clothes on my back and things like that, but there were a lot of dynamics within my whānau that were not good. Ka pai? Tell me about your mum, Jean. Oh, same again, mum loved to drink. I'd say I put a bit of she's a rock. She's a rock. She put up with all that stuff for all those years. And she's still there, still hung around. Any other one-worders about those people, Jean, that you could give to me to paint me a bit of a picture of your first 1,000 days so I can understand you a bit better? Oh, no, that's about it. I had a fair enough childhood, but there were a few dynamics within my whānau upbringing that I could have done without. What about yourself, Jean? What kind of pictures do you have around you? And that's quite often a hard thing to ask, or for families to think about and answer. We can rattle off 50,000 negative things about myself in a second. Tell me something good about yourself. Oh, I don't know. Sunday. So, but that's the reality of it. Okay, and if we're being serious about the black and white, bit of colour there, so excuse me. But if we're being serious about the black and white rules of engagement, if we like, this is where we need to be thinking. We put that, as Bruce mentioned before, we take out the line of the parents and the grandparents, and we start talking to the heartstrings. Now, if I'm treating my child like this, we may think you can not possibly love that child, because who does that? That's not how we show love in my house. And I'm sure we've all seen is it Vic Tamati, the ad? He used to spread the love around. He had love tattooed on here. And that's how he used to love his whānau, eh? But if we're talking about my first 1,000 days, if we're talking about my experiences, my parents' experiences, my father was a spitting image of my grandfather. And my nan, my mum, my dad married his mother, pretty much, and my mum. My mum stayed around, just like Nan stayed around, done all that stuff. So for me growing up, that stuff was normal. For a lot of our whānau growing up, that stuff is normal. That's what we need to understand. Ka pai? How do we introduce another option of normal to this whānau? And the key word being introduce, another option, not there to tell. Ka pai? How do we introduce? So we talked to our tamariki, we scrapped those other two gentlemen, we wiped that off the table, say, right, we've got these kids here. Do you believe as a whānau you have the ability to influence what pictures will be around your children when they're sitting in your position? With half the assessments that are floating around in our communities, we could do the whole thing by talking to a process like that without having to sit there and feel uncomfortable about the questions I'm asking and the boxes that I need to tick. And more importantly, if we look at the experience that the families have that we're working with, what does that change for them? It changes everything, because I'm not just another outcome or output, excuse me. So that's a little bit about the model on the ground and what a view for whānau and myself as a navigator that are walking alongside these families in the community. Ka pai? Now, a lot of it's based on us as navigators and the collaborative nature of our work up in terms of our systems and higher level is getting groups like WASIG and that together. That really, really helps us. That really, really helps us. Now, Bruce talked to a few local solutions. I'd like to pull up, next I'm going to be talking to what a local solution will look like in real life. Now, before I introduce my esteemed guest, I would like to provide a bit of background. So, and keep this in your mind, hashtag real talk. Ka pai? For something to take away and a bit of to digest, or in Te Ao Māori we call it timo timo. Ka pai? So what we're talking to is, this is collaboration in real time. It's not a great navigational service. It's not a great home-based service. What it is, it's about somebody being treated like a person and being worked with in a whānau ora concept that they can relate to, that brings the goal closer to them and something that's achievable. So what we're talking to here is over 100 convictions, roughly 8 or so years. This person also had an alert on his name since 2006, which said, if you see this man, arrest on sight. Now, this gentleman will tell his own story, but what it's here to do, it's not to put him on show, it's not to put us on show, my home org on show, anything like that. What it is to show how collaboration and understanding of a whānau ora concept will work in real time to make a difference. Okay? Now, this person my esteemed guest that I'm about to welcome to the stage, he will tell his own story. I'm not here, we haven't prompted him, we haven't given him anything to say, no script, hence the hashtag real talk. But what I will say is, after all that, this is an example of what collaboration looks like. Ka pai? In real time, that brings goals, that makes things that aren't necessarily achievable for whānau. This is the work that we can do together. Not over there, not over there, not over here. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to the whāriki Jerome Hemi. Homai te paki whānau.
I found Jean's whānau ora raukawa to be, how do I say it, very easy to approach you. You find them quite humble and, how do I say it, easy to talk back to, and I had never ever had an organisation that's come into my life and asked me how do I want to change things. I was always told by the system, you do this, you do that. I was never asked about how I felt about things and mine and my family's lives. And like you've seen 100 convictions, yeah, it was pretty bad. Had no trust in the system. Grew up with bad teachers. They taught me that this was the right way and this other way was the wrong way. So I was taught punch first, ask questions later. Attack anyone on sight that looks at you in an ugly way. And I found out in real life that it wasn't actually the right teachings, because I ended up behind bars. And behind bars I lost a lot of things, lost a lot of loved ones, and people looking at me like, yeah, he's going the right way as his father and all his other teachers, I suppose. Well, done jail, right? Done a lot of jail. And come to the realisation that jail wasn't the right place for me or my family. Lost a lot of time, lost my kids' first steps, and lost a lot of time with my family. And I want to change, and we came to this Manawatu district for change. And to start my journey on change was having to ask for help, and getting help wasn't something I was used to asking for. I used to do it all for myself, get it all. But asking for help was a big thing, and I can't really remember how we got put onto the Raukawa, but someone mentioned them. And I thought, just another organisation that wants to come in and tell me what to do and how to live my life and how my family should be living. And that was my view, because of the organisations I dealt with in Auckland were quite harsh, and there was never any help. But I went and asked for help myself, and we went to the Raukawa, and I met up with Gene. And he came to my home with an aura around him that said, I'm here to help you. I'm not here to look down on you or judge you for what you've been and done, I suppose. And we just felt the love, and straight away I wanted this person to come to my home. I wanted him to show me better tools that I had never been taught to be able to live a legitimate life. And a lot of the tools was going to places that I would not go myself. But with his support and the way he treated me, just picked me up, and I felt like, fuck, I can go anywhere with this fella, Fuck, I'm safe, and it's quite bad, because I've walked into gang pads and a lot of scary places, and the scariest part was walking with Gene out of my house is now violence free. But we do have arguments. But I've been told it's normal. Yeah.
It is.
And but I just told it's how you do it, and I never got taught any of those ways. It was just hands were quite a powerful tool in my life, and just having Gene beside us, has just showed me a different way, and I don't think any other organisation could have showed me this way without me resisting. There was no resistance towards Gene for wanting to change. And that was because of the way he approached me and the way he made me feel when he was in my home, in my whare. I could walk out of the room and everything's safe, you know, and that's just the way the bro made me feel. And I walked into a police station on my own accord with him telling me I should go there. And he looked after my kids while I went there, so fuck how many people do that. And I walked into the station and it was in the front door. It wasn't in the back door. Yeah. And it was scary because I was like, fuck, what am I doing? It's like Gene said, it's safe. Nah, it's safe, you know. I'll keep walking in, and then I got the honour to meet a lovely lady named Tracy, and she just gave the same aura. I could see the same aura. She hadn't been in behind the desk on computer sussing me out before I got there. You know, and I'm just used to people judging. Appearances can look a bit, I look a bit tidy today though, but...
Well, us both, right?
Yeah. But I said to my partner, I'm not putting on a button-up shirt, that's not me. And the bro said, bring real, and this is real as you can get. This is what I wear on a daily, but there's no red on me, which I'm proud of. Yeah, and I'm just honoured to be here and to be standing next to Gene and having this little talk with yous, and my view on life is a lot better. I would highly recommend this, bro, because this organisation will come to you and ask you what you need, where you need help, and they will deliver it to you. Pretty much pick you up. They say they're not taxis, but yeah, bullshit. They'll pick you up. They'll pick you up. They'll take you to where you need to go. So that's a taxi to me. But it was always work. It was always work. I must say. Yeah. It was always work. Always took me to places that could help me and my family progress forward in the way of change. Yeah.
Land and sea, talking about our home, land and sea, talking about our home.